Hello everybody. Philip.
That's it.
Hello.
John. So we are here at the hub today. The hub was open today for lava evacuees if anybody needed anything, and it was pretty consistent day here at the hub. A lot of people came by and picked up some goods. Also before the hurricane that will be coming in this week, Hurricane Lane. But we are discussing on some of the eruptions. From my standpoint, eruption down at the ocean entry there's still lava entering the ocean, but real minimal. So there's not that much of a big push of any lava entering the ocean. But there's two entry points from this morning, and it's steadily slowing down at the ocean entry. So and the ocean conditions was pretty rough this morning, and it's gonna start to get more rough because of the oncoming hurricane. But a lot of steaming from all the different fissures along the fissure line, from fissure 1 all the way to 2024. So much different things happening in a community today. But talking with Philip here on some stuff that is happening on the Eastern Zone.
Yeah, so I guess we have a couple pictures from today, Fissure 8. There's one from the USGS that actually shows that there's been some spattering coming out of the vent down there. The other picture we have shows a really small glowing hole, a small glowing puka, which kind of is probably similar activities. Kind of what's happening is the gas is bubbling up and then kind of burping out, and then bubbling up and burping out, and it's actually throwing out some lava when it's doing that still. So USGS is still calling that official. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what's official or not, but in their caption of their photograph, they're calling it a pause still. They're saying that may show signs that the eruption is not all the way over, that it's still paused. And as John's been saying, that others that the lava is still right there under the surface. And it just takes one small change, one small push to allow that to kind of
empty out again,
reestablish a path upwards where it could actually.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm just saying that there's still lava right there. Okay.
Yeah, no. Just to be clear, John's not a bad guy. He's the voice of reason. All right.
So there is some activity still in Fissure 8. Little glow.
Yeah. So that's still happening, but we're not seeing any signs of deformation that we can see. It's a little bit more difficult now because we don't have as many instruments coming in live as before on the website. But everything that we see and everything that we hear the USGS saying is that there has been no change in deformation.
Right.
And therefore, we still believe this is kind of in the same pattern of the eruption winding down, and a gas is kind of coming out of all the different cracks, right? So we talked about gas coming out of cracks in Lake Lani all the way to 130, and it's coming out of also Fissure 8 still. And so it's throwing up lava. The lava is still right underneath that ground surface right there, so there's no doubt about that. And we're still just waiting to see if there's any pressure going to build anywhere that causes stuff to come out, or if it's going to kind of slowly cool and harden down there, and that might take a long time.
That could be it, because what do you think? The pipe is still open?
We don't see any signs right now that the pipe is closed, apart from the fact that we can't tell if magma's coming in where it's going. So you might say one far end of the spectrum, no signal means no magma coming in. That's possible. More could be coming in and going somewhere and filling some space that's not showing a surface deformation, right? So that's kind of the other end of it. So we don't really know. We're kind of waiting to see. It is a volcano. At some point, it is going to repressurize, reinflate. We just don't know if it's going to take, days or weeks or months or years, But when we do see that, it'll be obvious that it is a reinflation. And once that happens at the summit, then we'll know, okay, did it translate through the rift zone? Then we'll know if it's connected or not. And, it may be that it changes while we're waiting. So we have to wait till that comes and how it actually manifests to really tell what might happen next. And we have no idea when it's going to happen next. That's kind of the real thing we have no idea about, is when.
And that's why I am interested in keeping track of when we can see the glow in there, because on the one hand it indicates there's still lava near the surface, that the intrusion is still right there, But like Philip's saying, just because it's spattering some gases and throwing out little teeny pieces of lava in there, on the one hand, that's still consistent with it winding down, degassing. There's still lava in the fault, in the intrusion, the dike, and it's just being thrown out with some gas. So it could still be winding down. But I just use it as a way of gauging, like, well, if that's still spattering, then we still have an open pipe, you know. So those are kind of the things to think about it right there.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, Mr. 17
Yeah,
spattered plenty, and it wasn't connected to anything.
Right.
that's true.
So all it takes is a little bit of gas collecting in air, and things degassing, it can kind of keep sputtering for a while. One thing that we've been discussing a little bit.
Fisher 22 spattered a long time, and it didn't keep glowing. Oh.
It did glow, and then stopped glowing, and glowed, and stopped glowing, and more glow, and more spatter, then less glow.
And that's the reason why I think our government don't want to let anybody into their homes, because the possibility of having another eruption is high.
Yeah, the uncertainty, and not wanting to like mobilize everyone out, mobilize everyone back in. There's like, okay, what's easier is just keep things as they are until we're a little more sure what's going on.
But to clarify though too, that just because it is spattering, it's not like an indication that it's building up pressure. The opposite can be true. It's just degassing and throwing a little bit out. Yeah. So don't start a panic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. You could shake like a half-drank soda bottle and still get it to put gas out, right?
Yeah.
So that's
But the picture kind of looked like. Do you want to bring up that picture?
sure. This one
I'm
right
gonna show you
here.
guys this picture, and this is of this.
Yeah. So this is a USGS picture that they put on their website this morning. So it's showing the
So the silver part, well, there's two orange dots. The silver part is where the spattering was.
all this kind of lighter colored gray in here is the lava that landed after getting shut out of this hole. It's just kind of landing all around here.
And I'm surprised to see it actually, because for a few days I was thinking there was no glow. So I'm like, whoa. But
So that's an indication that there's still lava under the surface right there.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Even once the lava drops down, though, it's going to be going for some time, right? One thing that I'm kind of recapping with John is, and you can add to this too, Ikaika, is down in Kalapana. I think probably a good comparison would be like the skylights and lava tubes, because you get all different kinds of lava tubes. Some of them are flows are active not very long. You get a skylight and the flow maybe is not very thick. The thing can stop flowing and stop glowing pretty quick. And other flows can be pretty thick too. That flow a long time, and then the flow can actually pause for a whole week or more, and you can go and look at the skylight, and it's still glowing bright orange as if the lava's still in there, right? So it's real tricky. I just kind of want to, throw out a word of warning, caution, because like glow by itself is, if you got nothing else to go on, you go on it, but by itself, you'd like to know more information.
That's the thing too about this one too. And the skylights was just hot rock glowing.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is still spattering.
This is still spattering, but what I'm saying is, even if it drops down where it stops spattering, and you still see it glowing, we're not sure if that means how close the lava is down there just because it's glowing. If it stays glowing for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then it's continued being kept heated from below, right?
Right.
And if it goes dark real quick, then we know it definitely hasn't. But anything in between doesn't tell us much one way or the other.
Inconclusive was the word.
Inconclusive, exactly, yeah.
And that's part of the reason the USGS is saying, it's an indication that it could be paused. It's an indication that it could be paused rather than POW. That's as much as they can say about it. So Phil's pointing out, just because it's glowing, that's not an end-all, say-all thing. It's inconclusive, even if it glows for quite some time. Yeah.
In fact, we just heard someone say today that the flows down Malama Key by Mackenzie were still glowing this past week.
That's also amazing. Yeah.
So, and it's been 2 months for those flows, and so probably not a giant hole and glowing that bright, but probably a couple of pinprick spots here and there glowing. That's not unreasonable to happen.
Wow. And that's the reason why we have a lot of the ocean entry is still going.
I think the ocean entry is still totally disconnected, actually, still, right?
Yeah.
So, the fact that you saw 2 days ago 5 points of entry, and then today you saw 3 points of entry, right?
Well, this is the funny part. Last week, we had 3 entry points. The next day had 2 entry points, a couple glowing spots. And the next day had 8. And then drop, and then we had 3 again, and then then it went back to 5.
Wow.
So
Definitely varying, yeah.
yeah,
So, you know, it could go on another week possibly, draining out and, you know, kind of, it can build pressure. I mean, within the actual totally isolated flow field, you can have anything building pressure and then erupting, right? If you look at old Kalapana, all those tumulus we have at the coast, right? They're all like late stage features of like the flow has actually had a chance to, it's mostly crusted over. And the gas builds underneath that crust, and at some point it's enough to actually push those giant rock things up, big rock crust, and to ooze out. Usually less gassy lava, because it's had a chance to kind of separate by that point, right? So you have that kind of gas bubble, you know, able to push that thing up and break the surface, and then the green lava comes up after it behind that. And that kind of is one of the last things that happens in a flow field, which kind of shows how much pressure you can still have with gas and how the lava can be brought out from it. Also, even much after the thing being cut off and
it's a thing
in a waning stage.
Yeah, and this could last for years too if it keeps on going like this.
Yeah, and that's the big if, right? You know, so I mean, I think there's, you know, the way the USGS is approaching this is, you know, okay, let's put the bounds around all possibility of what could actually happen, right? And what, you know, I am individually personally trying to do is say, okay, what's the most probable thing to happen? Not just like the whole range of it, but what's the most probable thing to happen if we're going to be betting, right? You know, you get a 16 in blackjack, you know, what are your odds to hit or not hit or stay, right? You know, it's not going to be right every time, right? But like, what's your best guess at that point? Knowing the whole range is, well, you could break or you could not, right? So, I mean, they're much more inclusive and comprehensive. The whole range of, you know, I think could stay active for 30 years. Right. But how likely is that? That's kind of where I'm going to take it differently than them.
But they only said it likely for 2 years. 2, not 30. That's
Okay,
a big
so
difference.
thank you. Yeah, for sure. You know. Well, but you know, I mean, I think they've said long term, right?
Yeah.
Months to years. And
Months to 2 years.
And for them saying that really sucks, because you know a lot of people want to move back in, and that could dampen their chances of getting back to their property.
Yeah, and we had some input from Les Peterson, the Hawaii Tracker, you know, kind of pointed something out that the way I've been thinking about it is how living in Puna, living in Volcano, there's like a background amount of risk that normally exists here all the time, right? There's always been a chance the ground is going to pick up and erupt. Just like in Volcano, there's always a chance there's an earthquake or a small explosion. That's kind of the background. There's always a chance of that happening. So when we start seeing inflation and ground deformation and earthquakes, then that chance increases, right? Then we have an extra higher than the background chance of an eruption. And we clearly had that. We've had an eruption. And now on the back end of it, at what point do we drop back down to what's the baseline background amount of risk? We're not there yet, because clearly lava is right below the surface. The gas is right below the surface too. It's throwing lava out onto the surface of the earth, right? You know, which technically we've been kind of dancing around a whole lull, pause, eruption thing. Technically that's an eruption.
Technically.
Lava's coming out of the ground, that's an eruption. So, you know, you could say, well, pause for a few days and it's spitting out again, it's not pause. Or you can see, well, the whole thing is still trying to pause, right? It's a long, drawn-out process, right? So, but what's interesting is that, you know, at some point, we'll have to drop back down below that background level.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's not going to erupt, because that's always the background situation here. There's always a chance it's going to erupt.
Yeah.
It's maybe not imminent, right? So maybe that's the crucial thing. How imminent is it? And, you know, right now it seems like, well, it's not extremely imminent, but it's much closer to imminent than it was background before, because clearly the lava's right there, whole pipeline is open, the whole dynamic of pushing out, all that still exists.
There's a likelihood of it restarting that we can't eliminate that likelihood, but it's less level of risk than when we were having all the earthquakes and inflation and cracking grounds. You know, that was clearly more dangerous than normal, and this is somewhere in between that at this moment.
Right. So I mean, just to say that, because if you're looking for a situation where you come back and say, well, okay, now it's safe, it's not going to erupt anymore. Like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the background level here is there's always a chance and there's always some risk to it. And that's okay because everyone who lives here has accepted that risk, right?
Yeah.
But for those who are not from here and trying to understand, well, you know, like when is it totally safe? There's no like, well, we're at the zero, now it's safe, we're done.
Yeah.
We never get to zero.
Yeah, I think we definitely don't get to zero when there's still glowing, spattering holes in Fissure 8. We're not at background levels until some of that visual confirmation disappears. But like you say, it's not the end-all signal we're waiting for. Is glow by itself doesn't mean enough. But I think as long as that thing is bringing lava to the surface spattering, it's they're not going to say it's safe to move back into your home. I'll say that much. You know, they're going to wait for that to stop happening for some kind of time before they're going to give an official, it's all clear, you guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they see lava still in that.
Yeah, geologically it's not the only sign, but for us here trying to determine if it's safe, it's one of the signs that's they're definitely judging by, you know.
Yeah, so, but maybe what's noteworthy to me is as far as a slightly different behavior as far as policy goes.
Yeah.
They've not immediately pulled back and say, okay, it's erupting again, and then, oh, now we're back to warning, and oh, now we're going to reset the clock and the counters, and all that. That hasn't happened.
No.
Yeah.
So they seem to be at least confident enough that it's not a huge change, that they're not going to reset the clock and say, okay, we're going to start all the way over in our countdowns and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing. You know, that could happen tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. That could happen tomorrow. Maybe we're just kind of preempting this, but like as of what we know right now, with that tiny amount of spatter coming out, it doesn't really change things that much.
So,
Yep.
anything else about the eruption or hurricane?
Well, we got all kinds of stuff. So how long you got is a question.
Yeah, we might do a long one later.
So if you got to take off, or we can switch over to.
We drew
How
a
about the hurricane?
You want to do
diagram.
the hurricane? We'll do
Yeah.
the hurricane and then wrap it. Okay. So let's just
Hurricane Lane
Hurricane.
has made a lane straight for Hawaii.
Yeah.
What do you want to see first?
Oh boy, hurricane slowed down today. Not as wind wise, but as the speed ground wise moving across the Pacific has slowed down, and that's not a good sign for us. So here.
All right. So this is the 5 p.m. advisory today, and it's showing. This is the 5-day path, right? The 3-day is this lighter gray, than the kind of polka dot area is the days 4 and 5 up there. And it's just showing just the center, where they think the center is going to be, and then this is a range of where the center might actually be. It doesn't reflect the size of the storm, which is, you know, the size of the orange, more or less, I think, yeah. And so, you know, when the center is over here, then like that'll probably likely more or less be the size. So that may change, of course, over time as well. So clearly, what Ikaika is saying is the fact that it's slowing down means it's likely to turn north sooner. We're hoping it would go farther over and turn up here. But the fact that it's slowing down seems it's becoming more and more likely it's going to turn right into the islands. It may come around a big island, but that just puts it right in line to hit all the other islands, which is also not good.
No.
So that's the actual track path right there. I myself like to look at some of the other images. So one of the things I like to look at, for example, is the wind speed probabilities, right? So if we go to, for example, this image, wind speed probabilities of over 39 mile an hour winds, so tropical
39 mile an
tropical
hour.
storm cutoff, basically. And the way that this thing works is down here on the bottom there's a percentage scale, so like the purple is almost 100% chance, and the white's none, the greenish is 10%, 20, 30% chance down here at the bottom. So what this means is, like, looking at, for example, Puna, down here we're in this light green area, right? So it's telling us in light green means that we have
20 to 30%.
somewhere in a 20 to 30% chance of having 40 mile an hour winds in this area, right? So that's sustained winds. So there could certainly be gusts that are larger than that, which is obviously possibly more damaging, but sustained winds as far as what we expect for the wind impact of a hurricane is not quite clear yet. As it comes kind of closer, we'll see more of that. Right?
Kona, Kohala, Ka'u, man, different fate.
Yeah, exactly. Ka'u, you guys can see, is up in that darker orange, right? So what's
South Point.
What is that? Almost 60%
60%
chance. South Point's going to be really, really, really windy. don't see how that can escape, but yeah, that's right there. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So this is the tropical storm force winds, right? We can kind of step it up and look at, okay, let's look at the 58 mile an hour threshold. So you can see there's less chance of stronger winds at South Point, but there's still, let's say, a 10% chance of 60 mile an hour winds down there. Right, over in Puna, we're down in a range of below 10% of having 60 mile an hour winds. Right, sustained. And the last image here, they have one more kind of bracket of this, which is hurricane force winds for 75 mile an hour and higher.
Yeah,
so you can see there's a 10% chance of Kau and Kona having hurricane force winds.
Wow.
Right?
And all this can deviate within the next couple days.
Yeah, so the next couple days, because what we're projecting here is the cone, is a turn going up, right? And this turn is hugely important, of course, exactly where and how steep, and that matters a lot to the islands. So that's what we got to keep an eye on in the next couple days. The last couple to kind of show you guys here, there's superimposed now what they call the earliest reasonable arrival time. So the soonest they think it could get windy. And down here in Puna, you guys can see we're around Wednesday 8 a.m. might be the soonest we might see the chance of those tropical storm winds, right? Now it can start getting breezy tomorrow, for sure, but like actually sustained above tropical storm force, they're saying that 10% chance is starting Wednesday morning. And this is the earliest reasonable arrival time. Now they also have a most likely. So they say the most likely arrival time is actually overnight between Wednesday night and Thursday morning would be when those winds actually come to Puna, right? So it seems like we're going to be kind of waiting Wednesday morning, a lot of waiting during the day Wednesday to see how it actually affects us, and by Wednesday night we'll know exactly how we're being impacted by that point in time. So that's the current situation with the hurricane. This is all from the NOAA website, from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, right? And the maximum sustained winds right now are 130 miles an hour, which is Category 4, right? And moving west at 12 miles an hour, which is a little slower than it was a few days ago, but it's been moving 12 maybe most of today, and yesterday was faster for sure. So that is the hurricane update right now. As far as this is basically, we've been dealing only with winds, right? Right. There could be a massive amount of rain also. Yeah. Rain to us is something that on island we're a little more used to. Rain,
we've been having a lot of rain in the last couple months here in Puna because of the eruption had created its own weather system.
Yeah, and speaking of that, people are kind of asking, what's going to do to the hurricane, and we don't think that there's enough gas coming out, not enough heat coming out now to really affect this hurricane.
Right.
So, short version, no effect of this flow on the hurricane.
Right. Anything else, John?
Just that I think definitely the hurricane is the thing to be aware of, to pay attention to this week. Volcano, yeah, it's spattering, but the issue is if the storm hits. So everybody should react to that accordingly. Try to be prepared. Do what you can. Be prepared with safety supplies, food, water, chainsaw for falling trees. Because our concern during this storm will not be the volcanic activity. It's the hurricane to look at this week. That's the first thing. It's not time to be complacent about the volcano, because it can still do what a volcano does, but this week it's the hurricane we need to think of, because it could be a really real thing by the end of the week here.
So along those lines, I got a message earlier today from someone in Leilani that is talking about the fact that they're seeing trees already falling over from having compromised root systems, possibly from the fog or the acid rain, or he's not quite sure exactly what, and I'm not an expert in that myself, so I'm not sure if you have any ideas, John, but one concern is that if we do have a weakened population of trees, especially around Leilani, that if we have a hurricane coming through, that those trees will fall over more so than they would in a healthy forest that hasn't been affected by the eruption.
Well,
so you want to address that?
Yeah, there's two ways to look at that. One thing is, dead trees, weak trees, they fall over and they break easier. But the other side of it is, especially for the albizia trees, most of them, whether or not they're completely dead, they've all lost their leaves. And that's actually positive because they have so much leaves, the albizia, they act like a sail in the storms, and that's why the albizia goes straight over. Their canopy is too big and it just catches the wind. So right now in the eruption area, most of those trees are defoliated. There's no leaves on them. And so that make them actually less likely to get blown over, because that's the real issue with the albizia, is that big sail of leaves. So maybe that'll reduce the risk for some of those big trees that don't have leaves. But you gotta also appreciate there's so many smaller trees of all different varieties that are completely killed from the eruption, and those are more likely to be blown over if the wind is strong enough. So it's a couple things to think about in your own area. You know?
So yeah. Thanks, John. That's a little botanical expertise there.
I'd rather talk about plants. So. Anytime.
So guys, so that's a short update. We have a hub meeting, and I'll be letting everybody inform on the hub future the next couple days. But so everybody, aloha everybody, and stay tuned. They're gonna do another live soon.
Yeah, so John and I we're gonna start up a different broadcast here and talk more science for you guys here shortly. But for the meantime,
We're gonna have a schooling
half of Ikaika.
schooling with
Those of you guys who
Philip.
need to tune out on the science, now's the time.
Philip and John,
Aloha.
professors. All right, guys. So everybody, aloha everybody, and have a great evening. Stay classy.
Classic.